live from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Hello, good evening. Coming to you live from the National News Studio. Welcome to the news together with Sharifa Sahib. I'm Clifford Richards. First of all, we'll take a look at the headlines. 3 ships carrying fuel for Lanka IOC ready to reach the island shortly. Gas supplies to be resumed from the 7th of this month. Plans to import 50,000 metric tons of petrol before the 10th of this month. Japan grants a $3 million emergency aid to Sri Lanka. A reminder on vehicle usage on these days. Preparations to face mental stress at a time of crisis. A new lease of life for push cycles. 3 suspects arrested in connection with the mysterious death of a Kandakaru detainee are to be remanded until the 14th. Mozambique is also engulfed in a fuel crisis, and more than 1 million South Sudanese face an unsecured state. Moving on to the stories in detail. Lanka IOC company says 3 more ships carrying petrol and diesel are scheduled to reach the island shortly. Well, one of these ships is scheduled to arrive between the 13th and also the 15th of this month.
The second shipload of fuel is expected between 29th and 31st of this month, while the third ship carrying fuel is anticipated to arrive in the island between the 10th and 15th of next month. The problematic situation at long queues near filling stations in many parts of the country has been aggravated due to providing fuel to health staff yesterday. Doctors and medical staff of the Navalapitiya District Hospital were engaged in an agitation yesterday over not releasing fuel appropriately to the health divisions. A tense situation has been created at the Udugama filling station in Galle when police officials were trying to obtain fuel at the time of issuing supplies to health officials. Meanwhile, a group of 3-wheel drivers were engaged in a protest in Union Place, Colombo yesterday against supplying fuel to health employees. Health division officers and sanitation officers in the Ratnapura municipality limits have refrained from reporting to duties due to lack of fuel supplies. Common transportation services throughout the island have remained at a minimum level today as well. As a result, the general public in the cities were subjected to many difficulties. This is mobile phone footage of how fuel is being pumped into a lorry and cans from a boutique attached to the IOC filling station in the Mahayangana town. The police special task force has been able to apprehend a person who was engaged in storing fuel violating laws pertaining to the issuance of permits. 950 litres of diesel stored in 5 barrels were detected in Bellum Mahara in Dompe. Clay industrialists say that they are fetching higher demand for their products these days as a result of gas shortage. However, these producers are confronted with the problem of bringing their produce to the market due to the fuel shortage. A group of persons who went in search of firewood at the Bhagawantalawa Protectorate in order to offset the shortage of gas and kerosene were confronted with a wasp attack last evening. A father of 3 children were killed in the incident. A threat has surfaced on the closure of the Kapatipala Special Economic Centre as a result of the fuel shortage. This centre is a major distributing location of upcountry vegetables island-wide. Issuance of fuel to lorries engaged in daily transport of vegetables to provincial economic centres including Colombo from the Nuvareli Economic Centre has commenced yesterday. Fuel has been supplied to the vehicles at the Sri Lanka's 3rd Regiment Army Camp in Nuvareli. The Litro Gas Company says that 3,700 metric tons of gas, which is the first instalment of 100,000 metric tons of gas scheduled to be imported to the country, would reach the shores by the 5th of this month. The Department of Examinations has decided to temporarily halt the second stage of the process of marking answer papers of the GCE O-level examination due to the prevailing fuel crisis. Commissioner General of Examinations LMD Dharmasena says paper marking will recommence soon after the receiving of fuel supplies. Japan has decided to provide emergency assistance amounting to $3 million to Sri Lanka by taking into consideration the present economic condition of the country.
Well, the Japanese embassy in a media release has stated that the Japanese government is focusing stern attention on the economic situation in Sri Lanka. The $3 million Japanese government aid is scheduled to be used for the provision of medicine and food to Sri Lanka. The communique adds that utilization will be carried out under full supervision of UNICEF organization and the World Food Programme. The media release has also expressed confidence over Sri Lanka, which is a long-standing friend of Japan, overcoming its difficulties. It has also been pointed out that the Japanese government is also focusing stern attention on the progress of Sri Lanka's negotiations with the International Monetary Fund. The objective of the Japanese government is to consider its continued contributions by conducting talks with the Sri Lankan government and other development partners. The Japanese embassy communique further says that Japan is continuously engaged in its task of amalgamating its efforts with the people and the government of Sri Lanka. Well, the United Nations FAO representative to Sri Lanka and Maldives, Mr. Vimalendra Dashan, expressed the overall emergency measures initiated by the World Food Programme to resolve the future food crisis situation and also a wide range of cooperation globally to resolve the economic crisis faced by the island nation.
You mentioned several measures that you have taken related to the Sri Lankan situation. So what are the overall emergency measures you are taking related to this situation?
Currently, as I mentioned, we have launched the CFSAM, and that's a good $100,000 program. So that will give us the real data with which to go forward. But we are not waiting for that data. So we have already launched a $700,000 anticipatory action program. We are also working with the Colombo Municipal Council under the Urban Harvest Program. We are giving $45,000 to set up a demonstration cum training plot on urban agriculture. We are working on many TCPs, the Technical Cooperation Programs, to enhance seed production within the country, to enable good agricultural practices to come in place, to reduce food loss and waste in the fisheries sector. We have money available from Australia, New Zealand and Canada, with which we are working on home gardens, on school gardens. Day before yesterday, we have launched 100 school gardens in Kurunagala, and we intend doing many more. So there are multiple programs all happening at the same time. But as I have always maintained with all forums, that we should never let a good crisis go waste. It's a crisis, and we have to see an opportunity in this crisis. And seeing that opportunity, we are working with the Department of Agriculture to put together an integrated plant nutrient management strategy to ensure that the fertilizer use efficiency goes up and less chemical fertilizer is used. And that is a program being worked out. We are also committed to preparing a food crisis response plan. But for that, we need the CFSAM data first. So over time, we will bring in our experts and consultants to prepare a food crisis response plan, which will look at not just the immediate crisis, perhaps a 2-year, 3-year outlook to take Sri Lanka out of this current situation.
You mentioned about silver lining the dark cloud. So now based on that, what are the medium and long term measures that you are planning to introduce to enhance the Sri Lanka's economic, especially agriculture sector?
Multiple ways in which we need to approach this. Sri Lanka has a lovely set of farming community. I must applaud the Sri Lankan farmers because they are educated, they are receptive, they are extremely hardworking. To that extent, our task becomes easier when we introduce something new. So what do we need to do? There are 3 or 4 things which are very important in Sri Lanka. One, productivity levels have to go up. The land mass is limited, so we have to increase productivity. And that will go up only if we bring in science, technology and innovation. That's my first focus with the department. How do we ensure that we grow more from less? So without exploiting resources, how do we increase our production level? Because it is important for Sri Lanka to become self-sufficient, especially in its most loved cereal, rice. Sri Lankans are rice eaters and of a very particular type. The palate is very narrow palate. Sri Lankans do not like a wide variety of rice. They want their samba, and that's a pretty limited palate.
Staple one.
And we can make Sri Lanka self-sufficient in rice. Again, there is absolutely no problem with that. So productivity is the first thing. Then we also really have to work on plant nutrient strategy. Sri Lanka uses fertilizer perhaps beyond what it should be using, and there is a scope of reducing this fertilizer usage through increasing fertilizer use efficiency, and that's a second medium to long term plan that we have to work on. The third extremely important part of the agriculture scenario is soil health. And we have to work on Sri Lankan soils to understand how we can reinvigorate the soil conditions, make it more productive. Because we are seeing a situation where the productivity of the soil health is deteriorating year by year. That's in the agriculture side. Coupled to that, we have a huge scope in improving the marketing system in Sri Lanka. There is nearly very little or nearly no e-marketing facility available. Sri Lankan farmer today does not know beyond his immediate market what the ruling prices are, where he can go, where he can sell. He is not integrated into any strong value chains or any strong global commercial chains. And those are areas of great importance as we want to take Sri Lanka forward. While all this is happening, one thing which really disturbs me is the amount of food loss and waste that is there in this country. We are wasting nearly 40 to 45% of what we are producing. So, and it's high, it's morally wrong, it's ethically wrong, it's financially wrong, it's wrong in all senses. And we cannot afford to waste that much food, especially because we have to remember that for every piece of food item that goes waste, there is a lot of resources which have been wasted. There's land, there's water, there's energy, there's fuel, there's human resources, which have all gone into producing the food which never gets eaten. So I'm producing a food and throwing it into the landfill. Now that is again adding to the greenhouse gases, which has its own environmental impact. So I think we have to pay a lot of attention on how to reduce food loss and waste. So loss meaning from production to retail, and waste meaning from retail to households. So that is, both these have to be really looked at. So as I said, there's so many things we have to work on. Then there's fisheries, there's livestock, there's so much to do there.
Veteran motor car technician and engineer Jagat Jayasinghe says that domestic private motor car users should focus more attention on the maintenance of their vehicles, temporarily placed out of action due to the prevailing fuel crisis.
Well, it's like the human body. Out of action is no good. And he points out that they should be more vigilant in driving vehicles with the minimum quantity of fuel, and also removing from tanks using hoses, as well as stationing vehicles without moving from their locations for long durations. And it has been revealed that a considerable number of private motor car owners have turned to other transport modes and disassociated themselves with driving their vehicles. Well, the technician Jagat Jayasinghe says there is a high probability of vehicles being subjected to attacks of animals such as rats and insects when they are parked in the same location for a longer period. Similar absence of long-term battery maintenance would also become detrimental.
Jagat Jayasinghe said that many motorists are indulged in the erroneous practice of driving their vehicles until full depletion of fuel. Such a condition is not conducive, especially for petrol and hybrid motor vehicles. With the fall of level of petrol in the tank, the temperature inside also rises, subjecting the petrol pump into an extremely high heat condition when the light indicator in the oil switch is on. Further travelling is not advisable, as it would cause damages to the electronic circuits, the fuel system and electric pump.
More attention should be focused on damages caused to sensitive gadgets and components in vehicles when removing fuel from the tanks using straw-like instruments. Well, Jagat Jayasinghe says that many modern vehicles and petrol tanks are located at the lower elevation. Therefore, any attempts to remove petrol may give rise to damage in the sensitive electronic components. The non-return valve could also be destroyed and it can fall into the tank. Other items that could be damaged include the petrol level indicator and also the electronic circuits. Jagat Jayasinghe further says that it is not appropriate by any means to reactivate the battery of the vehicle many times while reaching the filling station when waiting in queues to purchase fuel. Well, he said that lifespan of the battery should also come under the attention of the motorist. When remaining in the queues to purchase fuel, it is not appropriate to restart the motor at short intervals, as this would affect the battery and also the starter motor of the vehicle as well.
We are all in the midst of enormous stress as a result of dealing with many tormenting problems in life. Doctors say mental stress is one of the biggest challenges people face during this crisis. They point out that it is extremely important to keep the mind unruffled in order to effectively confront the mental challenges. Large groups in society are being subjected to severe mental pressure due to their inability to fulfill daily requirements within an extremely complex social setup. The mind of a person is constantly subjected to numerous pressures. It has been pointed out that our mental trauma is not only an obstruction for proper mental and physical health, but is a threat to the existence of life itself. Many persons are failing to cope with the situation due to their lack of understanding of psychological tension. Effective results could be achieved through efforts to learn the necessary strategies to face mental unrest. People are resorting to alternate modes of transport due to higher overhead costs involved in the procurement of fuel supplies.
Well, push cycles and electronic vehicles are the latest attractions. Well, Sri Lanka did not have a permanent plan to replace diesel and petrol-powered vehicles with electronic vehicles, despite the prevalence of a dialogue in this regard from the year 2017. European countries have gone ahead with their plans to fulfill electronic vehicle usage from the year 2030 to 2040. The corona pandemic has also increased the demand for electric motor vehicles. Electric motor vehicles are being priced from 500,000 to 1.3 million rupees based on their battery capacity and mileage. Electronic motorcycle sales personnel say they are currently selling around 200 bicycles a month. Well, the push cycle, which was in the backyard garage all these days, has also received a new shot of life. The price of a push cycle has escalated to the level of 70,000 rupees from its original price of 7,000 rupees. It has also been pointed out that push bicycle riding is conducive for physical health as well as the environment and the economy of the country.
Four persons who have been taken into custody in connection with the mysterious death of a detainee who has been undergoing residential rehabilitation at the Kandakadu Treatment and Rehabilitation Centre have been further detained till the 14th of this month. Investigations in this regard are being conducted by the Valikanda Police Station. Upon recording of statements from those undergoing rehabilitation at the centre regarding the incident, the consultants of the centre have also been summoned to the Valikanda police station to give statements. A communique issued by the police media division says 4 suspects have been taken into custody in connection with the death of the inmate. The arrested were 2 Air Force sergeants in Kottapitiya and Navalapitiya and an army sergeant in Hurigaswava and another army sergeant in Galnaval. It has been also revealed that the suspected persons have functioned as assistant advisors at the Kandakadu Rehabilitation Centre. A communique released by the Police Media Division says, according to the statements of the suspects, a high-density electric wire and 2 stalks of bamboo suspected to have been used to assault the victim have been found. The body of the dead detainee has been identified by a brother and friends of the deceased. A post-mortem inquiry is scheduled to be conducted on the 5th of this month. The suspects arrested yesterday were produced before the Polonnaruwa Magistrates Court today and was ordered to be placed under detention till the 14th of this month. The police and the army are engaged in operations in taking into custody 44 other inmates who had escaped from the Kandakadu Treatment and Rehabilitation Centre. A request has been made from the general public to furnish any information regarding the detainees who have fled to the telephone number of the OIC of the Valikanda Police Station, which is 07185912235.
Well, a little bit of disturbance in the weather situation. The southwestern monsoon has been activated. The Met Department says rough seas can be experienced from Puttalam to Mathura via Colombo and Galle, And also there has also been instances of sea waves reaching inland areas as well. Vehicle transport has been obstructed due to sea water reaching the areas of Akurala, Kahava and Telvatta. On the Colombo-Galle main road, some of the protected stone barriers on the beach have been destroyed in the incoming sea waves. Well, similar high tide situation has been reported from Dehiwala as well. Well, the annual feast of the Mother Church, Mannar, was conducted today with the participation of a large number of devotees. The annual feast of the Mother Church has commenced on the 23rd of last month. Bishop of Mannar, the Most Reverend Dr. Emmanuel Fernando, and Bishop of Jaffna, Most Reverend Justin Bernard, officiated the services upon conducting 9 days of offerings. Later, a procession was conducted with the participation of a large number of Madhu pilgrims.
A protest organized by the Samagi Janabalavegya urging the government to provide immediate solutions to many problems affecting the general public, including rising fuel prices, was held in Rikilagaskande today. The event has been organized by the SJB Hangurankata electorate organizer Jayalad Bandara Disanayaka. Several Hangurankata Pradesh Sabha members have also participated in the agitation.
Well, Chief Executive of the Samagi Jana Balavegya, Ajit P. Pereira, says that the country should go for a snap poll after providing a solution to the crisis through the creation of an all-party government. He has expressed his opinion to the media in Kalutara today. The Chief Executive of the SJB, Ajit P. Pereira, said that solutions to the problems could be found by politicians prior to the emergence of problems. The leaders of the country should have the vision to see the problems beforehand and take necessary measures to prevent the occurrence of a crisis. As the two leaders of the previous administration had failed to fulfill their obligations, the only remedy available is to create a provisional all-party government to resolve the crisis and to seek a fresh mandate from the people. Well, leader of the National People's Power, Anurakumar Disanayaka, says all groups must join to overcome the common chaotic situation faced by the country.
He has made these remarks addressing a rally in Ambalantara town yesterday. Leader of the NPP, Anurakumara Disanayaka, said that only a part of the recovery is for or to unite and come forward as one group. The NPP leader has invited all party men and especially the young generation to divert their attention on a true political path. He further said that the avenue that satisfies the aspirations of the youth is the political stage of the National People's Power. Minister of Transport Bandula Gunawardena has instructed railway authorities today to take measures immediately to repair and put into use 250 discarded train compartments.
And he has given the orders while engaging in an inspection tour at the yard of the Tantric company in Demataguda, especially reserved for the repairing of train compartments. Well, it costs the country around 200 million rupees to import a new train compartment. However, only 20 million rupees are being spent to repair such a compartment by the Tantric company, and it's Demtagoda yard. The company has already repaired 200 sets of power sets and train compartments of the Romanian railway company and handed them back to the Department of Railways. The minister also said that this occasion, that as many passengers are turning to train transport in view of the fuel crisis, more compartments should be deployed in train operations. Well, Minister Harin Fernando says that solutions will be provided to the gas and fuel crisis within the next 2 weeks.
The minister at a media briefing yesterday said that plans have been made to import 50,000 metric tons of petrol to overcome the petrol crisis before the 10th of this month. Minister Harin Fernando said that people wanted the resignation of Finance Minister, the President, the Prime Minister and the Governor of the Central Bank. 3 of them have vacated their posts, but 1 is still remaining. If somebody wants to make use of the crisis to satisfy their personal needs, it amounts to a sin. Sri Lanka has about $135 million in its possession, which is sufficient to purchase 5 shiploads of fuel. The gas problem will also be resolved after the coming week. He also said that after the 10th of July, the situation would be created to gradually resolve the problems.
Well, the Special Task Force has arrested a person who stored fuel flouting the permit laws. Well, this raid was conducted by a group of police officials in Balummahara, Dekatana yesterday. This was according to information received from the commanding officer of the Special Task Force, DIG Attorney at Law Varuna Jayasundara, and officials of the STF camp in Pugura. The group was able to apprehend 950 litres of diesel illegally stored in 5 barrels. A suspect culprit of the case, a 54-year-old resident in Delgoda, has been apprehended for further investigations. He has been handed over to the Dompe police. The value of the contraband is estimated to be around 430,000 rupees.
Well, that's it on local stories. We'll be back with news overseas. Do stay tuned in.
Stella, අපි හැමෝම කැමති.
தேசத்தின் இலக்கை நோக்கி முன்னிற்கும் நாம் சவால்களை வென்று முன் செல்லும் 61வது சுற்றை இவ்வாறு எதிர்கொள்வோம். மக்கள் வங்கி 61 வருடங்களின் அபிமானம்.
And heading into international stories, fuel queues not only in Sri Lanka but in Mozambique as well. Foreign media reports say that 2 of the main fuel suppliers for Mozambique have stopped selling fuel due to price discrepancies. The 2 main fuel suppliers, Puma and Vivo energy pumps, began dwindling 2 weeks ago. Fuel prices in Mozambique are regulated by the government. The world oil price has increased drastically for the past 5 months due to the Ukraine-Russian conflict and supply-side concerns. Fuel suppliers say that they are selling fuel to the customers, making a total loss, and cannot afford to sell fuel under the prevailing price regulated by the Mozambique government. Petrol stations fear government debt may exceed the guarantees needed from banks to import fuel.
Aid workers in Sudan have told the foreign media that 2 children and an adult have died of starvation in South Sudan as the suspension of food aid by the World Food Programme began. The deaths occurred in a displacement camp in the northern Warab state. It comes after the United Nations World Food Programme said it had suspended rationing programs in parts of the country due to lack of funding. In June, the body said it needed $426 million to continue distributing food. But that aid has not been brought forward as the international community has focused on other overlapping crises, including the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Prima Kotami, Pantan.
Well, welcome back to the sports news, and in topping the sports news is the Commonwealth and the basketball championships, and the players are getting ready, training themselves, and the national trainer Ajit Kurupu says that they are in a very positive mindset.
The matches are being conducted on the basis of 3-on-3 or 3-a-side status at the Torrington basketball courts. The Asian Basketball Championship tournament will be conducted in Singapore from the 7th to the 14th of this month. 27 countries, including Sri Lanka, will compete in men's and women's matches. Players under the age of 23 years will take part in the Commonwealth Games, scheduled to be conducted in England from the 29th of this month to the 3rd of next month.
And now we're moving on to a short sports roundup. Firstly, the Candy Blues and also the Gold teams becoming the co-winners of the men's championship in the inter-district joint schools hockey tournament. And in fact, the female championship has been secured by the Puttalam district team. So we have more on that.
The Sri Lanka Schools Hockey Association has organized the tournament for the 55th occasion. The matches have been conducted under the categories of under 20 male and female. Finalists of the men's championship tournament, the Candy Blues and the Gold, have ended the match with a 1-all draw. In the female tournament final match, the Puttalam players have defeated the Candy Blues team and won the trophy. Nipuni Fernando has been selected as the female player with the best performance in the tournament. The best male player has been Tharusha Pallewatha of the Candy Blues team. Isipatana College, Colombo, has been successful in maintaining its undefeated status in the Inter-School League Rugby Tournament when they beat Wesley College team by 10-0. At the end of the first half, both teams have failed to record points. The match was played at the Sukadadasa Indoor Stadium in Colombo yesterday. The New Zealand team has emerged victorious in a rugby match played against the Ireland team today. At the end of the first half, the New Zealand team was leading 28-5 and the final tally was read as 42-19 in favour of the New Zealand team. The match was conducted at the Eden Park Stadium in Auckland. Serbian player Novak Djokovic has been able to be selected to the final round of 16 players of the Wimbledon tennis tournament. Djokovic beat fellow Serbian competitor Miomir Kecmanovic by 3-0.
Terima kasih, Pantan.
Oh yes, we did cover a lot of sports there, and time to end the news together with Sherifa. This is Clifford wishing you a good night and do enjoy the rest of the programs. Take care.